Buddy Andrade has had many, many shoes that he wore out the soles of being an activist for this community. You don't find that kind of richness anymore these days. So to this Vietnam veteran and fabulous human being, I ask you to honor him with a round of applause. You didn't say I had to make up questions, though. Welcome. It's so beautiful to see your faces here. We're going to do things just as we normally do in a forum like this. Get to know each other, ask questions. If you find that there's any kind of unfairness or anything, please point it out, all right? Because we want things to be, we can't be perfect, but as good as possible. So, with that in mind, I'm going to hand the microphones to our two candidates. Identify yourself, whatever, and then tell us in your own words, why you want to serve the public, the school committee, okay? And we start with
Marcus Coward.
Marcus, it's all yours. And oh, good, to both.
Hi, I am Marcus Coward. I am a New Bedford native, and I'm running for school committee. So thank you. I'm 26, and I aim to be Gen Z's first elected official here in New Bedford. I go to the United House of Prayer for All People Church, or some people may know it as the Daddy Grace Church. I'm a Sunday school teacher there, and I'm a veteran as well. And I aim to serve this community to try and inspire the people my age, but the other people in New Bedford to be informed and be engaged in the community and try to inspire other young leaders to step up to the plate so that we can become the community leaders that the city will need in the following decades. So as people think of questions, please ask me about my platform. I would love to answer any questions, but I know time is short, so that is my introduction. Again, I'm Marcus Coward. I aim to inspire other young people to learn more about politics, learn more about the community, and to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. So I am Melissa Costa. I am running for re-election. I was elected to the Bedford School Committee back in 2021 as the very first Latina ever elected in all of New Bedford history city politics. And while I may be the first, I am the only right now, but I know I will not be the last. We need to inspire our community. I am a social worker. I work for the Department of Mental Health. I've been with the Department of Mental Health almost 11 years now. I've worked with children, I've worked with youth, I've worked with families, I've worked in Brockton, I've worked in Taunton Attleboro, I've worked in Fall River, and I've worked in New Bedford. So I'm very familiar with mental health, with the services, recognizing, and that's a big part of my platform is about dealing with social emotional learning and our children as we are coming out of this pandemic. And just the years lost on learning, as well as the social emotional and anxiety, as well as just socialization, the skills that the kids have lost over the number of years from being isolated. So that really is an important part of my platform. I've been in and around the community for a long time. I was the inaugural ride-along social worker with the New Bedford Police Department under North Star back in 2017 to 2020. I also have worked in New Bedford Public Schools. I served as a school adjustment counselor for a number of years. I'm actually, from being on the school committee, I've been inspired to go back to school to get my doctorate degree in educational leadership and policy studies, so that way I can ask poignant questions, so that way, making sure that we are aligned with the curriculum as well as the, what's what I'm looking for, what the state kind of puts down, right? So just making sure that we're aligned with all of that and asking the questions, equity questions, making sure that all of our kids are getting the resources and the services that they need in order to access access the curriculum that we have available. So that's just a little bit about me. I am a proud mom of 2 adult children who went through partially New Bedford Public Schools. They both ended up graduating from New Bedford Voc. That was their choice. And I was just sharing with Ms. Rivero that my daughter is an RN. She's a travel nurse. She does labor and delivery right now in New York City. And my son is, he works at Southeastern High School as well as is in law school. And I did that all as a single mom since they were 1 and 2.5 years old. So now I just have Nala, my snuggle puggle, to keep me company along with work and school committee and other boards that I'm on. That's a little bit about me.
We're going to ask questions that are important to you, so if anyone has any, please raise your hand. I'll get to you. I can see we're going to have a lot of questions tonight. Go right ahead. Thank you, by the way.
All right.
Thank you. Please. Would you like to use this microphone?
No, I'm loud enough. Thank you. One of the most important issues for any person on the school board right now is dealing with these ice raids, potentially. In my opinion, they're heinous. They are absurd. They're going to destroy our communities where it matters most, the children. How do you intend to protect our schools from these fake ancients of the state, I guess?
I can take that one. So I actually am the person who sponsored the safe zone resolution. So I'm actually the school committee member who sponsored the safe zone resolution to make sure, to guarantee that we are keeping our children safe while they are in school, as well as on school property or any kind of school activity, making sure that we are following the law that has been put forth by the Attorney General's office. Because we do know that our children, this also impacts kind of my platform as a social, emotional, and mental health. We know that this is disproportionately impacting our brown youth, our youth of Hispanic heritage. And so we know, if anyone was at the, I believe it was the June school committee meeting, we had little Fernando, who was at that time in 4th grade at Brook School, who talked about his fear every day of being dropped off by his mom and questioning whether or not she would be there to pick him back up. And that is a real legitimate concern. So how can we throw algebra, geometry, geography at our kiddos when they're worried about is mom, dad, my caregiver, whoever it is that I live with, are they going to be there to pick me up after school? So I'm making sure that we are doing everything that we can. As soon as we find out that a child has been impacted by an ice raid or some kind of ice pickup, we are immediately, Mr. O'Leary has put systems in place to make sure that we are working with that family, that we're getting them in touch with other nonprofit, other organizations and agencies in the community to make sure that they're getting the resources, the services that they need in order to be taken care of.
Well said, Melissa. I totally agree with my colleague, Melissa Costa, and I was at the past several school committee meetings, and I'm a full supporter of the safe zone resolutions. And just echoing what she said, making sure that all of the school officials are following the procedures that are laid out from the DA's office and the Attorney General, and then the superintendent. And so we have procedures in place to make sure that we're keeping these students safe and that we're not surrendering information and rights that we have that we don't need to. So making sure that our teachers and staff are informed of those procedures and rights that we have to, of course, ensure the safety of all of our students. So we're in total agreement, and if we can do anything in our power, at least me and her, in order to step up to ICE and make sure that we're keeping our students safe, we will absolutely do that.
Anyone else? Yes, of course. Stand up or come on over here.
Meet you halfway.
Thank you both. My question is, my concern is that the alternative school doesn't get the resources and the attention of the other schools. And that school has been, for a very long time, basically a school to prison pipeline. So do you have any thoughts on what can be offered and what can be changed so that those students that are valuable because they're young, and people can change at any age, how they can be first of all brought back into the regular schools, but then also like what can be offered to make that school an enriching place that brings, that gives us constituents that are engaged, educated, and excited about their future.
Anybody else with questions for the school committee? Yeah, I'll take it right ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you want to answer that?
Oh, my goodness.
Thanks for the question, moving on.
I thought it was a positive statement, so.
So I am also very much invested with the school to prison pipeline. I've done number of work with the Citizens for Juvenile Justice, which is a nonprofit organization out of Boston that has done a lot of research on the school to prison pipeline, what that looks like, how it disproportionately impacts our youth, our inner city youth, our youth of color. And so making sure that we are looking at that and looking at systems so that we are not contributing to that pipeline. With that being said, I know that there is the alternative high school. I know that they've done some sprucing up of the building as well. I would love to, as you were speaking, Dana, I was thinking about really looking at the data and looking at like what does how are the kids that are there, like what's going on with them, right? What is their plan? How many are going in? How many are staying there? How many are graduating with the goals of either enrollment, enlistment, entrepreneurship, education, right? So employment. So thinking about that and thinking about like, I'd like to see what that looks like, and make sure that there isn't also an imprisonment in that one as well, right? Like that's not one of the other ones that we're enrolling our kids into. So I want to definitely dig deeper into that. So I thank you for that question to kind of get my thoughts going. I know that they have put in some, some resources. I know that they've done a lot of partnering with some community resources and organizations to partner up with the youth over at Whaling City. And so I definitely thank you for that. So that way I can look more into it as well.
That's a great question. That schools like Whaling City or even the New Bedford High Night School very much don't get the attention that they deserve and are overlooked by so many people. And I've known people to go through both and are great students, great people. So of course they deserve our attention and care, acknowledgement. And that's something that I need to look more into, but I am all for giving them the resources that they need to thrive and make sure that we're not contributing to that school to prison pipeline. And one of the main ways to do that is to make sure that they have programs in order, whether it's during school, after school, or summer school programs, to make sure that they are staying out of trouble, staying engaged, and making sure that they are staying proactive and trying to better themselves. And that goes for alternative schools and just regular high schools. So I'm determined to learn more about what we can do for Whaling City, and anything I can do, I absolutely will. Thank you.
Are there any more questions, please? Yes, by all means.
My name's Shantae, and I come from 25 years in the school system. I saw what the school system looked like before the pandemic, and I saw what the school system looked after the pandemic. What are your ideas to get kids back re-engaged in school and the quality of learning to improve and not just be the expectation of just the child showing up. Because they are our future leaders of tomorrow and down the line. And I'm just interested in knowing what your ideas are to get the kids back engaged in school, how the teachers can work with the students to have more of an expectation than just to show up.
Thank you for that. So I have been thinking a lot about that and thinking about, so this year's seniors were 7th, 8th graders back when the pandemic first hit. And so I often think about what that social emotional toll, what that learning, you know, what that pause kind of did, right? So we're looking at them through the lens of an 18-year-old, but something stopped, slowed down when they were like 12, 13. And so I think some of it is us as adults kind of readjusting how we're looking at them because they didn't get that same level of socialization and things like that. I also think about the fact that schools need to be welcoming places. They are the community hubs, you know, here in New Bedford, we still have a number of neighborhood schools, right? And so thinking about this is where families can get access to resources. I would love, and I've spoken to Mr. O'Leary about this as I've been doing some research on it, about community schools, right? Really engaging the community in building those networks and building those collaboratives. So we're still in the infancy stages of talking about it. But I know for me, when I go to work, I want to feel seen, valued, heard, trusted, and respected. The same thing is true of our children. So if they feel like they are seen, if they feel like they're valued, if they feel like you know my name, you know who I am, chances are now they feel belonging, right? And we all want to feel some sense of belonging in our community, right? And so school is our community. And so really thinking about making sure that all of our teachers, and that can be with anybody, right? It doesn't have to be with just the teacher, the para, the kitchen worker, the janitorial staff, any trusted adult in that building. That's always one of the first things I ask kiddos when I'm working with them is who are your trusted adults at home? Who are your trusted adults at school? And nothing breaks my heart more than when a kiddo says nobody. And I'm like, there's not a gym teacher or this one or that one, go down the whole list. And they're like, no, I'm like, right, that's the kiddo I'm zoning in on, right? That's the one that I want to get connected to something. So it really is more than just showing up, it's about feeling connected. And so really building on that feelings of connection and belonging.
Great answer. I totally agree with Melissa, and you're finding a pattern, but she's great at her job. I'm really looking forward to working with her, hopefully. And so adding on to that, I've talked to so many students who are in high school, even in middle school, and people who have graduated talking about their experience. And she's so right in that we need to make schools more welcoming, in that we need to support our teachers because they're dealing with so much, that they also went through the pandemic and are dealing with the aftermath. But I've heard people echo that they would hope that teachers can be more personable, and that the teachers are, of course, trying so hard to make sure that they can control the classroom and still teach. But if we can help support their mental health as well, so that they can be those trusted adults that kids can lean on, and they're doing so much, but we're just finding that kids right now really need that mental health support from guidance counselors, from trauma experts, but from their teachers who they're spending so much time with. So making a welcoming and supporting environment is probably the top priority. As far as for academically, how we can be engaging these students and helping them, especially post-COVID, is giving them a curriculum that they find more relevant and care about, that is up to date with what students should be learning and also what they'll be needing in the workforce. So when I mean update the curriculum, I mean financial literacy classes, I mean leadership classes, and also having more hands-on learning, because I've just heard that that's how so many kids learn. That if we really want these kids to be engaged in class, we need to tailor the curriculum and the teaching styles to their learning styles. On top of that, in the last couple of years, and I think that this is an expertise for me, especially with my age and my generation, is knowing how important AI is and how important that is to the future, but how present it is right now. Middle schoolers, high schoolers, and college students are all using AI currently to get by in class, whether you know it or not. And there are a lot of colleges and universities that have AI detection tools that are still in its infancy and need to be worked on. But if we can have a comprehensive AI policy to help regulate the use for students and teachers, and not ban it, but teach them how to use it responsibly, I think that students will be more engaged in class, and it'll also prepare them better for the workforce. And so the last thing is this absentee problem that, again, it has only increased after COVID. So if we make classes more engaged, if we make the environment more welcoming, students will want to go to school more, and they'll feel like they're getting the value that they so desperately need out of school.
Buddy, I think, has given me the high sign.
About 10 minutes. I just wanted to ask a question.
Yes, yes. Take the mic.
I don't know how to phrase this. I was trying to ask the candidates here about their background information about the special ed programs in our school system. And what do you think about them? Do we have the right services? Do we have enough services? Do we have the right professionals in the classroom working with these youngsters? As well as all of the other support services, mental health, and other things of that nature. However, and so all the kids need mental health. This is a special group of people. We're talking about lead pain, people that are affected by lead pain, whether it's autism, whether it's anything with ADHD, things of that nature. What are your ideas about that? The services.
So there is federal guidelines and state guidelines for accessing special ed services. So making sure that families, once again, right, like being that community resource and making sure that families have access to the resources who can help them facilitate that, right? I can tell you right now, as a mom, I was doing my internship in New Bedford Public Schools as a school adjustment counselor when I was in grad school. And my son, love him dearly, but he was a tough one. I'm as good a social worker today because of that one. I say that, tongue in cheek, but, I had trouble. Here I am, educated, articulate, well-informed, and I was struggling with trying to get him access to special ed services. And so it really took me getting to know people in the community who were able to help me sit down, write my letter, requesting access to services for the testing, knowing the timelines, knowing there was, so many days between this part of it and that part of it, and then other days between this part and that part, what I was entitled to as a parent, because then you go to the special ed meetings and you're given this packet, I don't even know how many pages thick it is of the parent rights, and you're like, what does this mean, right? What are all these words? How did that impact me? So I know what I went through as a parent, in order to get my son. Now my son is academically extremely bright, had the ADHD, because he was so bright. He's the kid who's tapping, who's throwing things, who's calling the teacher stupid and dumb because they take too long, and calling all the little classmates that way, right? So not the best. And now, like I said, he graduated with his associate's degree 18 months after high school. 18 months after that, he had finished his bachelor's degree. 6 months after that, he finished his master's degree. And now here he is in law school while working full-time and part-time. Talk about a kid who needs to be constantly stimulated, right? In order to, that's the way his brain works, And so even when I got on the school committee, funny story, I'll share this one, is that I got on the school committee with Ross Grace, who served as a school adjustment counselor for my son when he was at Kearney, and Karen Tredup was a deputy superintendent who used to be, I believe she was the VP at the time when Cameron was there. At the end of kindergarten, Cameron was asked not to return to Kearney Academy, right? So he was being sent back to a different school. And so now here it was, many, many years later, now we're sitting at the same table, right? Making these decisions for all these other kiddos. And I'm like, hey, remember me? And they're like, yeah, Cam was 5, but he should have been in 5th grade. I'm like, that didn't stop you though from calling me nonstop to go pick him up. He was being suspended. He was, at 5 years old. So I've lived it. I understand it, right? And so being able, but having those people around me to support me, to help me navigate central office. And so I hope to be that person for other people in the community and build up other people in the community to be that for other families, because it is an extremely difficult system to navigate if you don't know. You know your kids. You know the child that is living in your home that you are taking care of. You know them, you know that they need something. And that's where the word equity really comes into play, because every child needs something different in order to access the same material. And so making sure, and I think even to Marcus's point earlier, right, about everybody learns differently. Some it's by sight, some it's about sound, some it's by touching and feeling, some they have to do a little bit of all of it. And so getting to know our kiddos, to know which way do they learn best, and making sure that we're addressing all of those senses.
So, with special education, with education in general, there's always room to improve. And I'm not an educator. I don't have an education in education, or if you know what I mean. And so I feel like my best asset, along with being so young, but being hopefully a new candidate and member of the school committee, is learning. Learning from the school committee, learning from the superintendent, from the teachers, the parents, the students. Because they all have different perspectives, especially around special education, which, like I brought up before with Whaling City and the New Bedford Night School, can be overlooked. And no child should be left behind. No child should be overlooked, no matter how much they struggle, no matter how hard it is to navigate, that every single child matters. And I am very interested, and it is a top priority for me to learn how I can help them. Me, as a school committee member, hopefully, I will be a resource to everyone in this room, everyone in the city. So, however I can learn about their experience and advocate for them, I intend to. With that, and this is maybe dreaming, but I just see this as a need in order to help with the growing number of children with IEPs, but also just with the ways that we can now recognize other students with special needs. That there are so many people with mental disabilities or with different style learnings that we weren't able to recognize 20, 30 years ago, but we have the technology and the education to recognize them. So the number's just increasing. With an increasing number of students and with those special needs students, special education students, we need more teachers and we need more paraprofessionals and people in the building. So however I can advocate for more staff to try and minimize what that main teacher is doing in the classroom, because that's one of the biggest issues I see in public schools right now, but especially in New Bedford, is the class size. That there's so many students that don't have special needs, that are requiring the attention of the teacher, and the teacher has 20 to 30 students to care about. So the students who are struggling, who don't have special needs, are already falling through the cracks. Like not even talking about the people, well, the students with special needs who need that special attention. So if we can somehow, I don't have the answers, but I will fight tooth and nail to find the solutions to try and lower those class sizes, to try and make sure that we have more paraprofessionals and more spaces to help the learning and help create a more comfortable environment for the special needs students who do have sensory needs, who have different learning requirements, that they're not lesser than. They just require a different teaching style that we need to step up to the plate to. Again, every student matters. It will be a top priority for me to make sure we have the solutions, fight for the solutions, to make sure we have the capabilities to acknowledge and serve all of our students.
One more question, and then we will move along. We have more than one. Yes. Come on, right over. Sure, of course.
Hi, Melissa. So I can appreciate the story you told about your son, because my 25-year-old, very similar profile, at Kearney, calling me. Maybe he needs an IEP, maybe he doesn't. We don't really know what this kid's deal is. But as you know, I have another son who's 15 with autism. He's mild to moderate on the spectrum. And as you know, I fought really hard to get him the services that he needed, but the consistency of the services that he needed because of shortages with therapists, with misinformation, and there not being an understanding of the law of him, because he is in a general education classroom, that he needs to be in that classroom and be educated in that classroom. And I can empathize with him being a disruption at times and how that impacts the other students. But what we found now that he's 15 is that because of his autism, he was incapable of maintaining that seated position. But there was not a presumption of competence. He is very bright. He's highly intellectual. And so my question, statement/question is, what do you guys anticipate doing in the future to ensure that not only are these kids being exposed to what their futures can look like beyond just life skills, right? We want to teach them to wash walls and wipe tables, and they have so much more capability. So in addition to the struggle of the exponential need for services, what do you have any ideas about what you can do to be sure that you're presuming competence in these kids and understanding that they're capable of much more?
And please, if we can keep our answers shorter, thank you.
So, I think it comes down to more staff in the building, qualified staff, and also, I guess let's start there. That if we have the people to address these needs, then that's at least a start. But with being qualified, and I think the third thing was teacher workshops in order to make sure that these teachers are assuming the best about these kids. Not that they mean to disrupt, but that there's a reason behind everything, behind all behaviors and actions. So to make sure that these teachers are qualified to see signs, to know that, oh, this kid might have autism, what's the best way to do it? Have different procedures in mind. But again, just having the personnel in order to deal with these needs, but making sure that these teachers are not just trying to teach well, but trying to assume the best in all the students.
Nikki, it really resonates with me, that question, because I work with adults with chronic mental illness, right? And so we, like an IEP, we have individual service plans for each one of the people that we serve, right? And so it really is about, when you talk about the competence, I think about the competence of the child, right? And it looks different for every single one of them, just as the adults that I serve. So we just recently had an adult come to one of our group homes who we found out about a week after they had moved in that the voices were so loud that it was excruciating for this person, right? We learned headphones. Wow, had someone told us that in the beginning, right? And so I think really bringing in the family as partners, right? Bringing in the family partner to, you know your child best, you know the person that's living with you best. And so really like what works at home, right? What do they enjoy? And I think it goes back to that, what I said before about that sense of belonging, right? And really getting to know the kiddos at their level and being able to push them a little bit more to stretch, right? Because that's where our learning and our growth happens, is right outside of that comfortability, but not in the pain zone, right? We don't want to inflict any kind of pain, but we want them to feel a small sense of uncomfortability, because that's where the learning and the growing happens. And so that really happens when we know our people. And so, having those smaller class sizes, especially for the kiddos, but having them have role models in the classroom, thinking about that model that's happened, you know, that evolved over the years. Because I can remember when I went to school, they were like in completely sub-separate classrooms, and, you know, and seeing the value that happens when we integrate kiddos. And so just really thinking about what is it that works, right? And so there may be a kiddo that needs the headphones, or that needs fidget toys, or that needs, you know, can't sit still, right? So do we have the bouncy balls that they can sit on, right? So making sure that even something as simple as that, about knowing the kiddo and what it is that they need, which is why, like, I love the idea of teachers meeting families prior to entering school, so that way, almost like a tell me about yourself, but it's, you know, teacher and parent having this conversation, teacher and caregiver having this conversation, so that when your kiddo enters the school, I already know about them and I know what it is that they need, their sensory centers, their space centers, whatever it is that they need. And so really just that team, that collaboration, that coordination, and bringing in outside resources whenever possible and necessary.
Mr. Andrade, what would you like?
Thank you very much. Thank you.